Welcome. Today's video, it's all about the 5 terrifying IELTS writing mistakes that you can make. Let's get started. First one, it's basically a run-on sentence. So what a run-on sentence is basically a compound sentence which has not been correctly punctuated. So, think punctuations, think commas. Here, I'll give you an example. So look at this bit here that says, overall, Beijing and Mexico emitted more sulfur dioxide than the other two cities. On the other hand, Boston and Mexico emitted more nitrous dioxide than the other two cities. Now, this is incorrect. Why? I'll let you guess. It's something here. Do you know what it is? It's basically a comma that's missing. Here, let's look at this one here. Overall, Beijing and Mexico emitted more sulfur dioxide than the other two cities. So we added that there, right? The semicolon. On the other hand, Boston and Mexico emitted more nitrous dioxide than the other two cities. Now that is the correct way to kind of talk about this. So some things are missing in here. It's basically the semicolon there. And of course, the comma here. And which is why this sentence doesn't really make as much sense. So remember your commas, remember your punctuation. Don't mess this up. That's number 1. Let's move on to number 2. It's basically sentence fragments. Now, what that is basically an error that occurs when a sentence is treated as an independent clause when it is not. So, a little bit of let's take a step back. If you don't know what an independent clause is, quickly Google it, figure out what it is, then come back. So, here, let's look at some examples, what the mistakes are and how to fix those. Look at this bit here. For the emission of sulfur dioxide, Beijing and Mexico showed a considerable difference. So do you see what the mistake here is? It's basically this bit here. It shouldn't be a full stop. It should be a comma. See this clause here, it's not independent. It's dependent on this bit here. Look at this one. For the emission of sulfur dioxide, Beijing and Mexico showed a considerable difference. Boom, there you go. So don't mix up your commas with the full stops and, vice versa. So remember this, don't make this mistake. Now let's move on to number 3. Now that is faulty parallelism. What that basically means is a parallel sentence which becomes faulty when one or more than one part of the sentence is not presented to be identical with the rest of the terms of grammatical structure. So here, let me break this down for you. This is what kind of it means. So look at this bit here. The differences in the minimum and maximum sulfur dioxide were 105 and it was 120 respectively. Now this is incorrect. Why? Because it's unidentical. We don't really know what do they mean by 120 respectively. They're like, what? Now let's look at the correct answer here. The differences in the minimum and maximum sulfur dioxide were 105 and 120 respectively. Now, here's the thing. This bit here, that's incorrect. That shouldn't be there. What do you mean it was? We haven't referred to anything other than sulfur dioxide and min and max here. So that shouldn't be there. That's the incorrect bit. So just go straight from 105 and 120 respectively. That's the correct way to write this. So remember, don't make this mistake because if you do, you lose points. Let's move on to the next one here. This one I've seen with a lot of candidates. Subject-verb disagreement. This happens so many times, you won't believe me. So basically what it means is, when the verb of a sentence or clause does not agree with the subject in terms of singularity or plurality. So basically mixing up your ones and twos. It happens a lot more often than you might think. Here, look at this example. The chart shows the fluctuations in the emissions of 2 pollutants in 4 cities, namely Boston, Calcutta, Beijing, and Mexico. Now that is incorrect there. Can you guess why? I'll let you take a moment here. Have a read and think. Now, look at this answer here. The chart shows the fluctuations in the emissions of 2 pollutants in 4 cities, namely Boston, Calcutta, Beijing, and Mexico. So, what do you think? It's the mistake here. Well, if you figured it's the S in this bit here, chart show, now that is the mistake there. You got it right. It should be chart shows. There should be an S in here, so that's the right way. Because we have plurals here, 2 pollutants, 4 cities, it should be shows, not show, because, it's not singular, it's plural. Now the last mistake that people make, this one is misplaced modifiers, and this is the worst of them all. So basically what happens is a modifier is a word or a phrase that modifies another word or phrase. So basically a modifier, as it means. A modifier is misplaced if it is used to modify the wrong word or phrase. Now here's what happens. People mug up these words, they learn, all this crazy vocabulary, but they don't realize how to use it. And that's, kind of doing it half-assed. If you're learning vocabulary, if you're learning big words, learn how to use them. Learn the context behind the words, Learn the what, when, where, why, who to use those things with. So let's look at examples, why it's wrong and why it's right. So look at this bit here. Despite discharging fewer pollutants than developing cities, the chart shows that developed cities like Boston still had a high emission level. Sounds a little off, doesn't it? Now let's look at this bit here. Despite discharging fewer pollutants than developing cities, developed cities like Boston still had a high emission level. Now what's incorrect here is the bit here that says the chart shows, and then here talking about discharge. There's a disconnect here. So, they don't really share the same verb, and which is wrong. Instead of having this, just scratch it out and just go straight from developing cities, comma, developed cities like Boston still had a high emission level. So there you go. That's 5 mistakes that people make, and they are the most terrifying ones. So now you know what the mistakes are, what not to, the mistakes not to make. And of course, if you still make them, work on fixing them, because these are the most common mistakes that I've seen among candidates. Hey, if you have any questions, drop them in the comments. So, we'll help you out there. And of course, if you have a friend who is struggling with this stuff, send this video to them. This will help them out. And let us know what you want to see more. Hope this helps. I'll see you in the next video. Take care.